pledge to the greatest nation the world has ever seen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Tonight, our speaker, Mr. Eric Pauer, who is the Vice President of the School District Governance Association, SDGA New Hampshire. His purpose, as he's told me, or his organization's purpose, educate the school board, the officials on their proper roles and responsibilities. You will do this. Is that how you do it?
Try to convince them.
You will do this.
As soon as they don't know what they're doing.
Promotes best practices in school boards, and coming from business, that's how we learn. When we go to do something, an improvement activity in business, we look around and see who's already mastered that particular activity. And then we bring the best practices in, and that's what we implement. We don't reinvent the wheel. So when I hear Eric talking about we bring best practices forward, then he's doing the right thing. Formulate model school district policies and propose and monitor legislation for local control and openness. So now what I'm going to do is turn the meeting over to Eric. Now don't forget, at the end of the meeting, when Eric is done, we're not done. So hang in there. So Eric.
All right, thank you.
I was in Concord all day today in the House Education Committee, helping advocate for some important bills. I'll talk about some of them in a minute. Senator Guida was there for part of it, and we're trying to implement things like having public input at a school board meeting. What a novel concept. Being responsible to parents in reviewing curriculum, knowing what's in your curriculum, those kind of things. Trying to correct cooperative school district withdrawals to make them fair so that the big town doesn't get all the property in the end. Bunch of things we'll talk about here. So I was just up, I gotta bring this up here.
Yeah, I'm not sure where you stored your stuff.
So I'm the vice president of an organization that's been around about 6 years called the School District Governance Association. I'm the vice president. There's my email address, and we'll get into it. I do have brochures at the entrance if you want to pick one up. It's a flyer, it's a trifold brochure. You can get more information on our organization. So again, vice president of SDGA New Hampshire. I've lived in New Hampshire for 46 years, and I've been living in Brookline for 27 of those. That's in the very southern part of the state. If people don't know where that is, you go further south of Brookline, you're in Massachusetts across the Mason-Dixon line. So we have a lot of people that go over the Mason-Dixon line down there in the southern part of the state. I serve on we have a cooperative school district, that's why I know a lot about it, with the town next door called Hollis. So we have a Hollis-Brookline cooperative school district, which is our grades 7 to 12. We do have an elementary district that's K for 6 for Brookline alone. And I'm also, like you have your Plymouth Area Republican Committee, we have a Brookline Mason GOP committee, and I'm the secretary of that organization. So I've been a lifelong Republican. My background is I'm an engineer and an engineering manager. I've been doing that for over 30 years. I kind of had a dual career because I served part-time in the Air Force for 30 years. So I was in the Air National Guard for 28 years doing civil engineering, doing emergency management, and doing, I was a director of logistics and engineering for the state of Massachusetts for the National Guard. I retired as a colonel about 2 years ago. Still not used to having all my weekends back, which is great. So I'm proud of that service. My wife is actually a state representative, Diane Pauer. She represents Brookline Mason, and she's doing a great job. I gotta say that, but she really is. And I'm really an advocate for fiscal restraint, but also educational excellence. You don't have to spend crazy money, like people think, in order to get good educational outcomes. It's really how you use the money. Throwing more money at things doesn't always solve the problem, and usually doesn't. It makes it worse sometimes. So the SDGA has this vision here, which is to really be a leading resource for empowering the stakeholders, the parents, the grandparents, the voters, and the taxpayers, to govern their school districts through their elected officials, and work with your elected officials and even become one of the elected officials, because that can make a difference. And I showed here one of the school districts here. You had one weak Republican and a lot of Democrats. And I was on the school board I was on at 7 members, 3 from Brookline, 4 from Hollis, and there was a lot of 6-1 votes there. But you know what? We still did it, And even on the greater SAU school board, where you put the Brookline, Hollis, and the co-op all together, that was 17 members. And there was a lot of 16-1 votes. But that's the way, you gotta start somewhere, And they put pressure on me, but it didn't work. So our membership consists of members from across New Hampshire. Many of them are past, present, or aspiring school board members. We do have a number of people that have served on budget committees that would serve both municipalities but also school districts. And then also we have a number of legislators that are in the School District Governance Association as well. We also welcome those who are interested, parents and taxpayers that want to join, that support our vision and mission and what we want to do. We want excellent education for our students, but we don't have to be crazy about the way we go about it in terms of spending. We have to be wise. Across New Hampshire right now, there's a decline in the student enrollment almost everywhere in the state. The student enrollment is going down. It's just what's happening across the United States. People aren't having as many kids and all that. But you still see the school budgets going up. So the school budgets are going up, and the enrollments are going down. It's like it's going the wrong way. So we have some things we're going to talk about doing that, but you have to look at that. And what's been happening is a lot of schools just keep the same number of teachers, and the population keeps going down and down and down. They keep the same number of administrators, or worse, they add them. So that's something that we have to fight. So our mission is to promote responsible governance of academic opportunity, accountability, transparency, choice, the school choice, fiscal prudence. We really want responsible governance. That's what we're all about. So here's some of the things that we do. We help current school board members and budget committee members, because the budget committee, not everybody has a budget committee. Do you have one in this area? I don't know if people have budget committees. Some places have it, some don't. So it depends who's on the budget committee. Budget committees are a really good thing, but like I said, it depends who's on it. Budget committee members understand their legal roles and responsibilities and really protect parents' rights. That's really important. And so try to make sure that, my wife was actually a budget committee chair, my wife Diane, before she became a state rep. So she was on the budget committee and I was on the school board. So that was a good time. We did slow some things down at that time. The SDGA also publicizes and communicates best practices. So we have a number of best practices. We have model policy, we'll talk about that. We have an experience network to support advocacy. So we have an email list, people ask questions on it. Sometimes there's not activity on it, someday you might get, 10, 12 messages on it, depending on the interesting topic. And there's people across the state, like-minded people that understand how to do things. How do you write a petition warrant article? How do you make an effective petition warrant article? Just even getting people interested in maybe running for the school board or running for the budget committee. That's important. I think you have to start somewhere. You have to turn the battleship. Using my Navy friends, you have to turn the battleship. You have to start getting people on there that have the right mind. That's the only way. And if you look at, in New Hampshire, because we collect property taxes locally for our schools largely, anywhere between 75 and 80% of your taxes are actually in the schools. So it's a really important thing from a fiscal perspective to take into account. We have a number of model school district policies, and it's growing. It's an independent alternative resource. The resource that school districts lean on today is the New Hampshire School Board Association, and that's in Concord. And it's a quasi-government organization, and it tends to lean to the left, to be honest. And too many school districts just take what comes out of the school district or the school board association and just uses it. And they can tailor it, but most don't do that. And that's where we get some of these things that aren't really good for the students or the parents or for anybody, really. Probably good for the teachers' unions. So we actually, you can go to our website and you can find some there now. We're adding more all the time. And I'll talk about some specifics on that. We also propose and monitor legislation that supports local control in education and openness in administration. Like I mentioned today, I was down at Concord and we had a number of bills talking about improving how the school district operates. Senator Guida did a good talk. He's a co-sponsor of, Senator, you were a co-sponsor of the bill for the making it mandatory to have public input.
Correct.
Yeah. Really a badly needed bill. There are some school districts that do that well. There are many that don't. Many don't want to talk about it. Many will say, well, if it's not on the agenda, you can't bring it up. And we didn't put masks on the agenda, so you can't talk about it. Or critical race theory. We don't teach it in here. We don't teach critical race theory, but they teach something, they teach critical race theory by another name. But you can't talk about it because we don't have it on the agenda. Well, that's bogus. So we're actually going to put it into RSA if this bill makes it through. Those sorts of things will be able to be talked about, and there'll be public input, and they'll be mandatory in law. And I'll talk about some of the other ones coming up. We also do webinars. So we have training for school board members, budget committee members, how to understand budgets, and other newsworthy topics, and I'll get into some of what those are. But it's an alternative to what the School Board Association does. It tells, you know, when I took the School Board Association training, they kind of said, well, you're a school board member, but, you know, if you're not the chair, you really can't express an opinion. You know, you have to speak as one voice. No dissenters are allowed. You know, that's the kind of thing they teach there. Well, it's obviously wrong, and I obviously didn't listen to it. But a lot of people do listen to it, unfortunately. So we offer webinars. We're having a few coming up. I'll talk about some of those that are coming up. And then things like critical race theory. We've had some discussions about that. I'll talk more about that. So, like I said, our accomplishments we've had as an organization is we've done numerous educational seminars and webinars. We're starting to record some of them and put them online. One of the things we've worked on in previous years was we brought up the idea about collective bargaining. Everybody says it has to happen in darkness, and you see the little thing pop out at the end. It actually just happened in Brookline. They have a support staff contract for our K through 6 school district, and I've been going after the superintendent. And they actually had the budget hearing last night, and I couldn't go to it because I was already in Concord. But I was like, superintendent, can I get the copy of the CBA? Well, we're not really done yet. That's interesting. Well, can I get the pay tables that are in there? Well, those aren't really, I don't have it really right now. We're having a hearing on it tomorrow, and you don't have it? It's like, you gotta vote and pass this thing to see what's in it. And it's like, no. Have we heard that before? Yeah. Affordable Care Act, Nancy Pelosi or whatever? Yeah. So, but they say it's all secret until it's all done. But if the voters are voting on it, then you need to be able to see it. So I've still got to get the pay tables, but you'll like it. Has anybody heard of Samburnization? They call it Samburnization of a contract. Maybe you guys aren't doing it up here. Don't do it. So when they say Samburnization, it says, like Samburnize a 4-year contract. They're saying you're going to vote this year to approve it for this year, next year, the 3rd year, and the 4th year. The guaranteed raises. Nothing crazy in the world can happen in 4 years, right? Right. Could have a pandemic or something. You know, we had teachers, they passed a 3-year one in our co-op that they passed right before the pandemic. And we'd actually worked hard and held the pay tables down to about a 2% raise and 1% in the 3rd year. Now they're coming back after we approved, foolishly we approved the 3-year contract, Samburnized. Now they're coming back. Inflation 7%. You just signed up for the lock and get in at 2 and 1%. You know, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
They probably voted for the guy who gave them the inflation.
Right. They probably did. We met the enemy and it is us, you know? Exactly. So, so collective bargaining, standardization is, I don't like the concept of it because you're basically approving money for this year and it's for 2 to 3 or 4 years in the future. And that's really crazy. You can have a 4-year contract and vote it on each year. Sometimes you might need to make an adjustment. Maybe you need to give them a little bit more because of inflation. That's fair, right? You don't have to always squeeze them all the time, but they shouldn't get the automatic one. And right now, that's only a majority vote, actually a majority card vote in the at the school district meeting. Or if you have a SB2 meeting, it would be by the ballot, but it's still just a majority vote. And that's just crazy. So my wife was actually put up what they call a legislative service request, an LSR, to correct that, to make that a 2/3 or a 3/5 majority vote by ballot at a traditional meeting or on the SB2 ballot. But it got pulled because the makeup of the legislature is Republican, but it's not enough of the right Republicans. They're some of them are pro-union, so we couldn't do it this year. But that's definitely on the burner for next year. Hopefully we get the red wave that we're all hoping for next year, and we'll be able to fix things like that. So if they want to go for the standardization, you're going to have to face the ballot box at 3/5. And I think that makes people think twice. That makes the unions think twice. It makes the teachers think more about what they're going to do. So, but also collective bargaining doesn't have to be done in secret. Other states don't do it. But somehow we think that's what we have to do here in New Hampshire, so we're trying to fix that. But the climate wasn't good enough because right to work, if you followed that, didn't make it through the legislature for whatever reason. There was enough rhinos in the legislature. So anyway, that's why we're looking at doing that next year. And Diane, my wife, did check with leadership and all that. It's just it's not really practical for this term just because we're not going to get the votes for it. So to hold it and bring it up next year. So hopefully we'll have a red wave and we'll get more Republicans in there that are like-minded. We've been testifying in the legislature on bills, and I did that today, and we've been doing that every year. Most of them tend to be in education. Some of them tend to be in municipal and county government. Occasionally, we one in another committee. I think we have one that's in criminal justice where we're endorsing a bill where there's a $1,000 penalty for a school administrator denying a school board member access to records or the building. Some places in the state, school board members are forbidden to go into school facilities, believe it or not. They're banned without checking with the superintendent. Who works for who? You know, I mean, the superintendent works for the school board. It's not to do malicious things, and I understand there'll be some exceptions. You can't go into, you know, students' PII records and stuff, but any other types of things, the school board members should be able to get to it. And that's, a lot of people have been stonewalled, so that's a big problem. So that's one of the things we're going to be working. We have this year in the bill. I think it's Bill 1046. It's going to be out. We're going to be pushing that later this year. I don't know when the hearing is. We also have a school district candidates pledge. I think you guys talked about pledges for candidates. We have one. It's on our school. It's on our website. It's 10 points about logical things you should do, crazy things like following the Constitution and all that stuff. I think there's been an advocate here that talked about that, trying to get people in the school board to realize it's a government, and they need to follow the New Hampshire and the U.S. Constitution. And so that's really important. So, and then we have a number of model school district policies, and I have a list coming up on that. So here's some of the training and webinars we've done in recent past. As I mentioned, we have this toolkit for newly elected school board members. It lasts about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We've done it on Zoom recently. We've also had it in person in the past. And that's really good for people. It's an eye-opener. Some of them do the school board association training, and then they come to ours and they say, wow, they didn't teach me this, or there's things they just didn't talk about, or they said, you have to be muzzled. If you're in the dissenter, you can't really talk out. You can kind of vote no, then you can't say anything else. So we have that that we do. We're going to be doing that coming up. We'll talk about when that's going to be, I think right after the March elections. Money can't buy love or education. That was a really, there was a PhD who lives over in the, what town does he live in? He lives in the Sunapee area. And him and his wife are both in the SDGA. He's got a PhD in planetary science. But he did a big analysis, and he showed that we are spending way more money in New Hampshire over the past 20 years, and actually nationwide, but we're getting less results. So we're spending more and more money. Even if you take out inflation, we're spending more and more and getting less and less. The students are doing worse. For those who are aware of the SATs, Scholastic Aptitude Test, that gets re-normed.
Yeah.
Because they need the average score to be 450 for the math and 450 for the verbal. It's been re-normed like 5 times, just got re-normed again like 3 years ago. So, to get a 700, like 700 score in math today, it's a lot easier than it was back when I took it. And the organization Mensa, I don't know if anybody are familiar with Mensa, it's a high IQ society. I'm actually in Mensa. And they took my score, but I saw that like 3 years after they had renormed the SATs, they don't accept it for scores older than that, or newer than that. Because you dumbed it down. It's like, they don't, yeah, it's like, that score doesn't make a sense, you can't use that because it's just not good anymore. And one of the things I helped push was, instead of using the Common Core testing, I don't know if people have heard of Common Core. We fought that. We put a petition warrant article. We passed it in our district in 2014, but the school board just ignored it, which was really a thing they probably shouldn't have. And we're actually looking into petition warrant articles. When you do a petition warrant article like that, is it a suggestion or is it obligatory? And what we're hearing is that it's more obligatory, but the school board association says, it's just a suggestion. But I think that's wrong. And we're working with the Attorney General's office to understand that if you do a petition warrant article and it passes, you gotta do it, as long as you're not doing something illegal. So, that's important. And I've got that question, and I had one today. People want to do that for critical race theory. People want to do that for mandatory masks. We worked over our co-op school board for our 7th through 12th just recently. We were relentless on them. And they voted to make masks optional. We were surprised. A 4-3 vote to make them optional. So it was close, but we convinced just enough so that our 7th through 12th graders didn't have to wear masks. But there wasn't any guts on the K through 6 districts. The Hollis and Brookline, both elementary, said, masks for the kids that are under 6th grade and under. We are the ones that need it the least.
Right.
So it's like,
Should wear something that doesn't even work.
right, and the saddest thing is when I take walks, and sometimes I'll see the school bus coming home, and I see all the little kids sitting in the bus with their little masks on, and they get off the bus, and they're walking, and I'm like, this is like so sad. And then I complained to the school board, all the standardized scores came out, and they went into the toilet. All the proficiency is way down. And I'm like, you guys are screwed up. I know remote learning did a lot of it, but the masks are doing it too. The masks are probably the primary phase. I know kids just think about the mask and it's just bothering them all day long. You know how kids aren't going to change the mask. They're going to use the same one probably for the whole week, if not longer. So it's a big problem. So getting back to the money can't buy love or education, it's really interesting. We really aren't doing the right thing there in terms of getting results. One of the bills we had today was to make it mandatory that every warrant article in a school district would put down the cost per student for that warrant article, the operating budget or any other big items. So you would take what the item was in dollar figure, divide it by what they call average daily membership, which is the average number of students that you report to the Department of Education. And people are like, the Democrats there are like, you can't do that. You have to take out special ed. You have to take out transportation. You have to take out oil. And we're like, if I'm paying for it, you're counting it, But it's like, it's that kind of mentality. And you can't really, so that was actually contentious. Hopefully the committee will bring it as what they call an ought to pass out of the committee, which means they're going to recommend to the full House to pass it. The School District Governance Association promoted an amendment to that that said, optionally, let a school district say, we want the most recent proficiency scores put on the warrant article for the operating budget. They don't like that at all because they're bad, you know? You gotta show them we have 20% proficient, 30% proficient, and whatever, 30%, 40% proficient for whatever, math, reading, and science. So the language of the article was, whatever the terminal, the highest grade in that district, you publish the proficiency for reading, math, and science, and put it on the warrant article for the operating budget. They did not like that. Republicans all liked it, so I think they're gonna probably pick up the amendment, push it forward, hopefully. And it's what they call enabling legislation for that piece of it. So that would mean it wouldn't be mandatory. They could put it on if they wanted to. A school district could put it on if the school board wanted to. But the voters could pass a warrant article to force it. Kind of like, I don't know if you guys have this up here. Some towns do it, some school districts do it, and some don't. Putting tax impact on the warrant. Does that happen here? So many dollars per thousand, so many cents per thousand when you see a warrant article. That's an optional thing. That's something you can adopt. A budget committee or a school board can put it on, but you can vote to make it mandatory. And last year I did a petition warrant article and got it to pass for that very case. And they're all crying this year. They have to put, what do you mean with to tell people how much it costs? They're going to see a number and they're going to vote accordingly. Bingo! Yeah, what a novel. Well, they have to see full context. They just don't know what it's going to mean, and like it's crazy. You know, tell people what it's going to cost. Anyway, they're already fudging numbers for one of these things this year. They want to show a bond, and they only want to show the tax impact of the tiny amount you pay in interest, instead of showing, you know, what the bond's going to cost the second year when it's actually a full payment. So we have that battle to fight, you know, the deliberative section.
They're evil.
They are evil. The other thing we did in Brookline, until 2016, we had the traditional meeting, and we knew that the only way to kind of turn the ship and get more people involved was to get to the SB2 system. And so in the first try, we passed SB2, which I think everybody likes. As more Republicans get it, more people vote and participate in it. And they didn't like it at all. They were really against it, but we passed it by a slim majority. I think it needs 60%. I think we got 65 or 66%. So we passed it, I guess, fairly comfortably. And then 2 years later, we went with the available legislation called the tax cap. I don't know if you guys know what that is. You can put a tax cap. We put it in for a 4% tax cap. The deliberative session moved it to 8%, thinking that was comfortable. I'm like, I'll take 8% over anything. So they made it to the ballot at 8% and passed by 3 votes. So now we have a tax cap in the Brookline School District at 8%. And you know what? I didn't think it was good. I thought, well, it's nice that we got it, but it's a little high. Yeah. You know what? Every year they're right up against it. 7.8% this year. And I'm like, that's really stopping them because it stops what they can propose. The unfortunate thing is it's a little bit of a toothless bill, because at the deliberative session you can override it with a majority vote. It doesn't require supermajority. So it's good, but it's not perfect. So actually my wife has a bill this year to put teeth in the tax cap. Once you get to your tax cap, if you're starting to appropriate above it, you've got to do a ballot vote, even a traditional meeting, and it's got to be a 3/5 majority. So you're allowed to override it, but you need the supermajority. That's the way it should be. So putting the tooth in the tax cap is good. And then I digressed a little bit, but it's all good. We have a good session on just school district budgeting. What are the major components of budgets? How do budgets work? How do revenues work? All those sorts of things. We have that. It's kind of both school board members and budget committee members. We work with Right to Know New Hampshire about open meeting laws. So we have a whole thing about how to do right to knows, how meetings have to be open. We also have one that's coming up, which is the ABCs of school boards and their responsibilities. What does a school board member need to do? What are the basics? From a conservative perspective, So that's coming up. I think it's coming up next week. We'll see here in a second. And then just earlier this week, we had a nice seminar. I think we recorded it. We're going to publish it. It was done by a lady from the Sanborn Regional School District, where they had an out-of-control school and out-of-control budget. In over a course of about 6 years, they got all conservatives on the budget committee. They got all conservatives on the school board. I think 16 of 17 administrators didn't like it, and they left. And they have all new people that are administrators. The teachers are pretty much the same, and everyone's happy there. The budget has gone down, and they've done a really good job. So it's a really good case study in how they did that. They formed excuse me? Sanborn Regional. I can't remember the name of which towns it is. I think it's Newton and Kings. I remember the two towns. I know one of them's Newton, but it's Sanborn Regional School District. So you heard me say the term Sanbornization. So they actually got that name after them, because what happens is Sanbornization, they used to just kind of trick you in the warrant articles. They would just tell you the first year cost, but they wouldn't tell you the out year costs. And that was deemed illegal in a Supreme Court case. Bob Guida probably knows better than I do. And basically they said, if you want to Sanbornize, you've got to show them numbers for the other years. You just can't say, well, it's going to be something, trust us.
Congress does that all the time.
Congress does it all the time. One of the big problems with it, even when they disclose it with the New Hampshire retirement system being level for the out years. So if you don't know how the New Hampshire retirement system works, the New Hampshire retirement system is, they set a rate and it's good for 2 years. And after 2 years, whatever is in RSA 100, I think it's RSA 100 or RSA 100A, they follow the rules that are in that, and they apply what the benefits are, and then they come back and give everybody in New Hampshire, all the municipal employees and school districts that are under the this retirement system, they say, here's your rate. And if you look at the curve of the rate, it's been going up exponentially. It is insane. So when they give you the out year numbers, maybe the next year is right because it's one more year, depending if it could be even wrong, but they use a level number, and it's been going up exponentially in the past 10 years. So that's a problem too. So you inherit that. That's kind of a state level thing you need to fix, but that's what the Sanbornization is all about. So the lady from Sanborn, there was a really good story about how they brought things under control, and they actually did some good things with collective bargaining as well. So we have some seminars coming up. Monday the 24th, which I think is it next week or the week after? That's our ABCs of school boards and their responsibilities. And if you go to the SDGA.org calendar, you'll see these. And you can register for them. It'll send you an email. It'll send you a reminder when you get close to the date. Right after we have the elections, what is it? Probably March 8th, I think, is this year's elections. March 26th, Saturday morning, we're going to have the toolkit for newly elected school board members. And then on April 25th, we're going to have the one about policy, the secret battlegrounds. That's actually a new one, so we're working on that one now. I'll talk about some of the policies we're going to talk about. And then we have if you're a member of SDGA, and we welcome members, we'll talk about that in a minute. We have an annual general meeting where we get all together. We had it last year on May 1st. It was in Concord. And that's where we talk, the whole group gets together and talks about what we're doing, where we want to go, and just kind of synchronize. And we do that annually. We also have the 10 of us that are officers. We have meetings every Saturday, the first Saturday every month on Zoom. And that works pretty well, so we synchronize that way as well. So we have a candidate's pledge. I didn't put the whole thing because it's long and I know you can't really see everything, but I kind of highlighted the candidate's pledge. So it's making sure people have the right mindset, see how they would work with things. But the main ideas in there is respect the United States and New Hampshire, our constitutions, Bill of Rights, equality for all, not equity. Equality, everybody gets an equal opportunity. We actually are probably we're poking the bear a little bit this year. We did a petition warrant article called Equality, Unity, and Justice. And essentially, it's to counter critical race theory, DEI. But it's in a very positive way. We've crafted it kind of under President Trump's law and the law that HB 50 had the trailer, which has the divisive concepts ban, which is really saying you can't teach that the United States is a bad place, that if you're white, you're automatically racist, if you're a man, you're automatically against women, all that stupidity. So basically we have that in a petition warrant article. I'll be glad to share the language with anybody if you want to use it. We tried to do it at the co-op last year. So our co-op meeting, we have a traditional meeting in our Hollis Brookline co-op. And because of the pandemic, they held it outside. And it was on a Saturday in April, and we had miraculous weather that day. The meeting started at 10 a.m. and ended at 7:30 in the evening.
Wow.
It was literally a battle of attrition. And the last warrant article was this one we have this year in Brookline. And it just went on for, I think people talked about it for like 3.5 hours.
Ouch.
You know, it was crazy. But there was a lot of liberal people that showed up. And unfortunately, the conservatives tends to be the older crowd. And by the time we got to a ballot vote, it fell short. And they defeated the warrant article, unfortunately. Now we have it in Brookline, we have the SB2 system, which is, you vote on election day or absentee ballot. I think we're going to have a better shot at it. So I think they're probably not on some people's Christmas cards list, but that's okay. But you have to get the 25 signatures. So I've got a number of people that are backing me up in that. So anyway, it's equality for all on the pledge, really recognizing the authority of the parents and the voters, taxpayers. They work for us. The elected officials is a privilege. We picked you, but you still need to serve us. You're not above us. And at the bottom of the food chain is the administrators, not at the top. And I know that's a novel concept for some places, but the superintendent works for the school board. The school board works for the voters and the parents, not the other way around. Also, having transparency about what you're spending, doing these declarations of tax impact is important. That law is available, so you can pass that in your school district if you don't have it already. I think it's a great thing. But understanding we've actually forced them to show us more and more. We've actually done pretty well there. Sometimes it's showing us real stupid stuff though. Like this year, we have the 8% tax cap in Brookline, right? So they're going to raise the taxes up to 7.8, so they're reaching it. But they had talked about making $17 million of improvements. $17 million in a little town. This is just for our K through 6. That was their wish list. So they made the most they could go for was 2.5, because that's the way they could fit under the tax cap. So they have a warrant article for 2.5 million, and we made them show what's in there. Well, we're going to save lots of money because it's energy savings. I'm like, okay, energy savings. Let's look at the payback. And you look at the payback, and there's like 6 line items. The lowest one is, I think it's an 11-year payback. And some of the other ones are like 46 years.
Oh my God.
And they're proud of it. I'm like, that's not selling it to me, guys. And then you look at the line items, and then they're like, you see this line item, and it says $1.5 million. So 1.5 to the 2.5 is for an elevator that we've never had in our elementary school. And our elementary school is 1 story, except for we have 1 classroom and kind of like a storage office area. And that's it. And there is an entrance. 1 entrance starts there, and there's stairs going up. And I'm like, you want to put an elevator in for $1.5 million? That's like, that's crazy. So, anyway, they don't think that way. They think that, well, if you don't want the 2.5, we're going to put a contingency warrant article for the 1.5. No. But anyway, that's what we have on our warrant. So this is the mentality of people that are on the school board. And believe me, they would have put more than 2.5 if we didn't have the tax cap, almost guaranteed. So we're starting to get the transparency. Sometimes you get bad news, but at least you know about it and you tell the voters, before they vote. We'll probably be out of the polls telling them to vote no on these. And then we also have transparency. So we have an SAU that has doubled in size in the past 15 years. Doubled in budget, doubled the number of people, and our student population is down 15%. So this is like more administrators, and it's crazy. We used to have, I think it's actually more than double. I think we had 8, in 2007 we had 8 people, and now we have 17 and it'll be 18. They want to add a person, a communications specialist to deal with COVID. For 80-something thousand a year. Yeah, I'm like,
I want the job.
yeah, I want that job with the full New Hampshire retirement system, right?
You can be wrong and still make it work.
Right. So we actually adopted a budget. They call it the alternative budget technique or alternative budget procedure for our SAU. So it actually goes on the ballot. And Brookline, the co-op, and Hollis all vote at the ballot box. So we're going to get people to vote no on that and cut that position out. Save ourselves $80,000, $90,000. The good thing is Brookline has the SP2 ballot and the co-op and Hollis don't have it. So we're going to be weighted, even though we're a smaller town, we get 1,000 people voting. Hollis had 30 people at their meeting, and the co-op gets about 300. So of the 1,400 votes, 1,000 will come from Brookline. So we can do it in Brookline, so it's smart. We'll stop that. We want academic excellence as well. You know, we want the test scores to be better. They're like, yeah, the test scores, they try to say that they don't matter, but they do matter. They're showing how proficient our students are. That's why we have it. When they don't like it, and they tend to hide it, they also hide the student projections. They'll have them there. You have to hunt. I think this year they put them in the back of the minutes of one of the meetings in October in the co-op. So you have to know where to find it. I found it. I'm telling people about it.
What's that? What?
The projections for the number of students coming up. They're all going down. They use an organization called NESDEC. I don't know if it's used up here, NESDEC. It's an organization that's actuarial predictions. They're actually pretty good. And they give you a 5-year projection, and all of them are going down. So he's kind of like, you really want to see that, Eric? Yeah, I want to see it. I want to show people. They don't like when I ask for it. But they know I ask for it.
Is the link to those guys, that data on your website?
It's going to be school district by school district specific.
I really like that. You can go to the NASDAQ website and get it for your school.
It's a customer gets it, the SAU gets it. And then the SAU is supposed to publish it. When it was going up, it was prominent. When it's going down, they kind of hide it. It's really kind of disingenuous in my opinion.
I don't believe SAUs are universal. How many states don't have SAUs?
I'm not familiar with it. It is a New Hampshire concept.
It's not universal by any means in some states.
We actually we're looking to we actually did a petition warrant article to pull the Brookline School District out of the stupid SAU because by law, in the RSA, you need a superintendent, director of special education, and a business administrator.
It just
You
strikes me
need
as
3
SAU
people.
does nothing that's not already done.
So why do we have 18 or 19 people?
You don't need any of it.
You need 3, the minimum in New Hampshire.
Oh, to do the job,
Right.
not to be on an SAU.
Well, you have to have an SAU that has that minimum people.
Okay.
That function has to be accomplished. It doesn't necessarily have to be an SAU, but you need to have a superintendent.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But
You have to
getting rid of
accomplish those
SAUs
functions.
would save New Hampshire a huge amount of money.
Right.
They're paid well, there's too many of them.
Ours is, we have about 20, I think it's 2,200 students, and our SAU budget is $2.2 million.
You mean in the whole state?
No, just in our Hollis Brook.
Oh, no.
So we
multiply
figured
that
out,
by state, we're talking
well, maybe
about
it's
hundreds of millions.
just about, I think the number, it's $840 for every student in our full SAU. Just for the SAU office, that's the overhead.
overhead.
It used to be something like 230.
This is for a function that's not necessary.
Right.
I'm getting.
It's all administrators. almost all not needed. Accountability, that kind of, the same thing. Make sure they're accountable and make sure they're doing a good job of budgeting. This is the things that we want the candidates to pledge to. And I have a link for it here. It's also, you can find it on our website pretty easily. So we have some example model policies. We have conflict of interest. We have preparation of a default budget. This applies if you have an SB2 town. Does anybody here have SB2? Okay, not many. They play games with that, by the way. I caught so that's helpful for that. We have, how public use of school records, data management, DEH. We also have one on how school districts are supposed to do policy development, and it isn't take the New Hampshire School Board Association and rubber stamp it. That seems to be what happens. You need to really look at it for your district and make sure it makes sense. So how do you do policy development? Too often, New Hampshire School Board Association brings it over, the SAU massages it the way it fits them, and then they bring it to the school board and say, approve, please. I want to read it. You just sent it to me 2 hours ago. Just vote for it, trust me. That's too much what happened. I saw it happening, I voted no. I said, if I don't get to read it, I'm voting no on it. Yeah. Public input at board meetings. We're getting the RSA at the state level, but we're also providing policy that will be aligning with that. Hopefully that law passes, that bill passes. Agenda preparation and dissemination, we have letters on that. People aren't familiar, there's a lettering system that's used across the country for policies, and that's what these are using. So we've actually made alternatives. So if somebody says, I don't like the BEDH, what does the School District Governance Association have? Look at using that and maybe tailoring it. Believe me, it's going to start from a better point than the one you get from the other guys. Publication of academic program materials. We actually have petition warrant articles for the co-op in Brookline this year to make the teachers or the administrators put a copy of every textbook and any book that's used in the schools for classrooms, one copy in the Brookline Library. Public and if teachers go to teachers' workshops, a copy of that material if we paid for it as taxpayers. And we're doing it in the co-op, we're making them put it in Brookline and Hollis because we have 2 towns. And everybody that I came to that wants to sign that was like immediately. So this is going to be one we're going to see. If you pass it, is it going to be obligatory? We're hoping it will be. But we're also saying that this should be available to parents. We're not trying to make it expensive. It will cost a little bit to do that, but it's definitely worth it because you'll see what's in there. One of the ladies that signed the petition showed me her daughter, she's a senior at Hollis Brookline High School, her psychology book is so woke, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh,
So it's like, it's crazy.
is that the public library or the school?
The school. No, they'll put the books in the public library.
That's what I thought.
The school library can have them if they want, but the public library. And we have a petition warrant article for that language. I think I got it from somebody in the good part of the state.
What about things that are done online? That's what they're doing.
Then we have to provide a way to be able to access it. Anything that's electronic, we have to provide. And then, this is an interesting one. Guilford, I don't know if anybody's heard, they've done one about transgender students, JV, AD.
Many letters.
Yeah. Their transgender students have some rights, but they're giving them like too many things rights. They're saying, well, we're going to do a novel concept. I know you might be a boy, or you might be a girl, and you think you're the other. Okay, but you can't say I don't know. You can't say that I'm fluid. You have to call me, you can't call me he or she, you got to call me Z. No, you need to pick one and stick with it.
They call it non-binary.
Right, non-binary. You're going to be binary. So we have a policy. This one's getting ready to be published. And it does a good job of making sure that you don't break any laws with this, but that it also makes sure that you're not doing stupid stuff. Like biological sex versus, identity are different things. But biological sex is where you use the restroom, where you use the locker rooms, all that stuff. So some of the legislation, this is a really good one. We have a school district budget cap, and it's actually tied to the average daily membership. So if your school, it's enabling legislation. My wife is the main sponsor of it, and SDGA also sponsored it. So basically, if you adopt this legislation, you fix your per student cost at, say, $15,000 a year. And then for the next year, if your population goes down, you have to scale down by how many students went down. If it goes up, you go up. You get $15,000 per student, and there's also an allowance for an inflation factor. So you could use CPI, or you could say a fixed 2% or whatever. So that's House Bill 1393. It hasn't been scheduled yet. It's going to be in municipal and county government, which is my wife's committee, which is great. And we've got a bunch of senators that are interested in it, so the school districts could adopt it. And that will counter the problem of having increasing budgets with the decreasing populations. Duties of the school boards to provide education, this was heard today. And that basically is making sure school boards do what they're supposed to. Review curriculum, all that. So that was actually really good. I think that went pretty well in the committee. And then Senator Gaius, co-sponsor of this HB 1169 about public comment and inquiry during school board meetings, really important one that we endorsed. We have this one to include, I think I talked about it already, the cost per student information, 1276, and we also wanted to add in putting in proficiency scores. And then establishing a penalty, House Bill 1076, I think I mentioned it before, that if you deny elected officials access to school district facilities, documents, or events, you're gonna have a penalty. So I think this is the last slide. There's one slide, concluding slide. This is our organization, SDGA NH. The website's sdganh.org. You can attend our free webinars. We don't require anybody to be members. You can feel free if you want. There's brochures in the back. You can look at it. You can make an application. We do review people just to make sure that they have the like-mindedness if you're interested in joining us. And then if we accept you, which we do accept most people that have the same mindset, and it's $20 a year. We have a members email list. We do have a members only resources page. We do our general meeting in May. And our goal is really to help drive the future of education in New Hampshire. Make it excellent, but making sure it's wise expenditures and that we have the right governance there. So that's what we're all about. And I think that's it. Thank you.